Hello?
Took me bloody long enough, but I
Yeah,
am
I know.
here.
Oh my God. Good to hear you. Um, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Just like busy from like what was I doing today? Muay Thai. So it's like I decided getting beaten up 3 times a week with pro wrestling just wasn't cutting it anymore. And I've now signed up to 3 extra days a week doing Muay Thai classes.
hmm
So yeah,
And
it's like the Tuesday session is the one that goes the latest, which is it starts at 6:45. So I was thinking, oh cool, be up by 8, but it wound up being like a bit after 8, got home after 9, have to eat, have to shower, especially when you're like doing exercise every day, got to do the Epsom salt bath. Otherwise, it's like I'm old, pushing 30, can't walk the next day.
cool. But you're obviously liking it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really, really am enjoying it in terms of like the Muay Thai classes themselves, because I kind of took it up as a bit of a hope to help me get better in the ring wrestling wise,
Yep.
more like explosive fitness to be able to keep up with the pace of wrestling moves, better core strength, better balance. But like, not to shit talk myself at wrestling, but kind of, I think that like 1 week of Muay Thai and I'm better at Muay Thai than I am at wrestling.
Well, the wrestling stuff you're doing is a bit unorthodox,
It's
whereas
true.
Muay Thai is probably you're probably doing it more regular style, I would imagine.
A bit of muscle memory from like the time that I did karate as a kid and like knowing how to throw a kick from like I'm a big fan of a particular martial arts actor but who is obviously a real martial artist because he does a lot of stunts. His name's Scott Adkins.
hmm
Highly recommend. Um yeah, he's been like he's unfortunately just never really got like a major breakout like starring role in a Hollywood movie, but from the stuff that he's done, he is really good at his craft.
Cool.
He was in Ip Man 4. So if you've ever, highly recommend Ip Man 4 if you're a martial arts film, specifically like into your proper martial arts films, the Ip Man series, great, starring Donnie Yen. If you're a bit more mainstream with your action movies, Scott Adkins is in Expendables 2. So he's in the sequel to that. I like Expendables 1 and 2. I think 3, I like Ronda Rousey being in 3, but I don't like the fact that they toned down the violence when like the whole point of that franchise is violence. But there you go, there's some movie opinions.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
We'll start that off with that. Let's get into the questions we have. Um,
Yes.
and there's a lot. I'll probably trim it down a bit and just remove some of the completely stupid
Yeah.
ones. Um,
Gotcha.
just so we get a bit of quality going on. But even then, there's probably still going to be some dodgy ones in there. That'll be fun.
Uh, Absolutely baffling that people continue to like want my opinion on anything.
Well, it's true. So here we go. Um, First up, are you aware of the nonsense sounding storyline that Aespa has about fighting a giant snake and going into virtual reality?
Yes, so the giant snake is Black Mamba and their virtual reality is Kwangya. I have like a vague understanding of ace lore. I personally don't really care much about it, but it's like a big thing in their like songs and music videos and concepts. And it's, it's like everyone's got a universe these days. Like BTS is probably going to be the one that armies are like, they started it, they're the pioneers. But, the original BTS storyline wasn't really much of a universe. It was all to do with like the concept of Young Forever. And then that was meant to end at Young Forever as like this open ended, really nice, sentimental sort of finish. But then, like, big shit realized how much of a like, how much they could capitalize off trying to create their own mini universe. And so they dug that story up out of the grave and flogged it like the dead horse it is, to the point that it went from being a story all about youth and like the literal meaning of the story of youth is valuable because it is fleeting, so you should cherish the time that you have while you have it, and gave like Sokjin time traveling superpowers that he accesses by changing his clothes or whatever, and like a whole bunch of rubbish. So yeah, that was how stupid storylines in K-pop were born. Like, I know Luna has their universe or Lunaverse, if you will. I know shit all about that. I think like SM's one is meant to encompass like all of the groups going to Kwangya, but it's mainly really like aespa focused. And it's like, I consider myself a bit of an aespa stan these days. I'm probably saying their name wrong, so, much of a stan as I am of them, like they'd be in my definite like top play this year. Bangers, loving it, love their new single, love their new album, enjoying the shit out of it. But like in terms of the law means nothing to me. I'm just here for the bops. I really don't care. I'm old. I don't have time to follow stories.
Do you
Just give
think
me the bangers.
do you think SM will keep it up?
Oh, of course they will.
um, Next question. Going off the assumption that having the tall and voluptuous Karina specifically as the face and center of the group is to attract a male demographic, do you think it will be a different male demographic than the one that may have enjoyed Eyes One or early concept G Friend, IU, A Pink, etc.?
Weird kind of question, to be honest, because like I wouldn't necessarily classify Karina as being tall and slash or voluptuous, because she's like 168 centimeters from the off the top of my head. Because again, I'm an aespa stan. That's like the first thing I do is research height, and I'm like, how big are you in compared to me? So voluptuous wise, like I don't necessarily analyze that because that's your
That's my job.
interpretation of the area.
I
I'm sure I think she's quite pretty, of course. She's definitely a visual. But in terms of like concept wise, it's like Eyes One, I know, I definitely am reluctant to even mention the fact that she's sexualized because it's disgusting because she's literally a child. But Wanya, the youngest member of the group who was like 13 or 14, she's quite tall. She's probably going to grow up to be as tall as I am. Like she's over 170 now. And then you look at G-Friend, Yuju is over 170. So is literally my height, and she's 178 centimeters. And Una, as I'm sure you're aware, is definitely quite voluptuous body-wise. So I don't think there's anything different in terms of her physical figure or stature in comparison to the other girl groups who are marketed as like, wholesome and cute. And literally, you've written articles on this, so you could just link your own shit.
Yeah.
On how like innocent concepts are still just as sexualized, if not more, than something that's a bit more overtly girl crush. Because it's playing to the upper, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that I want you sort of fantasy. And if anything, it's even more disgusting because they're literally underage, whereas every member of aespa is an adult.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how popular that sort of fantasy is with all these groups. I mean, so they wouldn't
Especially
keep.
like, you look at a group like A Pink, and I'm like, I've been around K-pop for a while, so I've like A Pink were one of the first girl groups I super got into, and I still really like them. And it's just like, I got into them as a girl the same age as them, so that's why I was liking them. But then I find out that such a huge percentage of their fan base is the uncle fans, and like uncle fans are just ill. Like you sometimes see the Twice music recordings from like the live music shows, and you hear the fan chants, and it's just like old men, and it's like, bruh, go home and feed your kids.
Yeah, it's obviously a popular thing because otherwise the companies wouldn't waste their time. So it's a big thing.
Yeah,
Um,
it's gross.
Although I find on back to Karina and the question, I find it that SM, with the exception of Sunny, I find that SM tend to quite often really downplay any sort of curves on their stars. Like if you look at someone like Tiffany Young, oh, as soon as she left SM, she suddenly had a much more voluptuous image. When she was with them, she didn't have that at all. And I've seen that with a few other SM idols when they've left as well. Um, so I just think that's interesting that they don't actually seem to play that sort of aspect forward all that much. I think they may be a bit scared to.
I think they're definitely a little scared too, because a lot of their SM family sort of marketing is almost like an indirectly family friendly image, whereas Korea is very conservative when it comes to women in particular and things like cleavage.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of, and like cleavage is shocking in Korea. Whereas like,
mm,
you could go out in winter in a miniskirt and no one would bat an eye. Like leg reveal, totally fine. Such as like, SNSD and Genie era is like the peak example of that.
yeah,
But like showing cleavage is like huge. Showing shoulders if you wear a singlet, huge. So it's like it's an interesting,
yeah,
weird phenomenon.
yeah. But I think to answer the person's question, I think probably is a slightly different demographic because the really sort of babyish, opera concepts don't really come from SM. The
Mm.
probably girls' generation was the closest they ever
I was
got to
about to
that,
say that.
and even
Like
then,
early girls' generation.
I would say A Pink did a more extreme version of the same thing.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's what I think. Let's move on to the next question. We have a lot.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
Don't want to keep you up past midnight.
yeah. Um, next question is quite silly. Are you sober this time around? Of course you are, because no one donated to the
Unfortunate.
alcohol fund.
Yeah,
Um,
y'all suck.
the alcohol fund is my Patreon.
Hmm.
So just donate to that and shoot me a
Hmm.
message saying these monies go to AustralianSana and I will transfer the funds appropriately. We'll work it out.
Hmm.
So, but that hasn't happened yet, so disappointment.
Yep,
Um,
you're all paws, but so am I, so I can't really judge.
hmm. Next question. Dahi from former BTS sister group Glam tried to scam money
Hmm.
from a famous Korean actor. That actor is
Yes.
now in Squid Game. Any thoughts on that?
Hmm. Yeah, Darky.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
I find it hilarious.
yeah,
Sorry, it's just you're just reading what's written there. So the actress or the sorry member's name is Dahi,
yeah,
and I think she runs her own like those VJ video kind of blogger accounts. So she's doing half
something like that.
decent for herself. I like to hope in
Mm,
her own world,
mm,
because yeah, there's like a huge amount of misogyny when it comes to glam and their situation. Because it's all about BTS's company, so therefore the company is perfect and perfect company putting women who are like 19, literal teenagers rather than women, into debt worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, which she was then left feeling helpless enough to the point that she resorted to doing said blackmail. Not that it's an excuse to commit the crime, but the motivation's there. And yes, her action, blackmail, wrong, got jailed. I mean, we move on from that. But it's like the fact that Big Hit, who put her in that financial situation, virtually like loan sharks, continue to have this squeaky clean image because they use BTS to cover for them, and then they just change their name to Hype B before launching a new girl group so they can claim that it's Hype B's first girl group. Nah, your first girl group you put into so much fucking debt the members resorted to crime to try and get out of it. And then Lee Byung-hun, I don't know. It's like I'm not a fan of his, but I liked his work in drama Iris. I also liked the movie when I was 16, but went back and rewatched it and was like, why did I like this? It's high key trash. But the G.I. Joe movie, he was
mhm.
in that as he was the guy that was dressed in white. It's not Snake Eyes, it's his rival,
I
but
haven't
you get
seen
the
it.
gist of that. So he was decent film. Decent film when I was 16, not so much now. Anyway, so yeah, like I don't mind Lee Byung-hun's work, and I was kind of excited when I saw him in Squid Game because I was like, oh my god, I recognize that accent, I recognize that voice. And it's actually a very funny scene. Um, I'm not sure if that happens to come across if you're using the audio, because I watched it with the Korean dub and subtitles.
Mm.
And there's
Don't
a scene where the
don't
two,
don't spoil a Squid Game for me.
I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a scene where two characters, well, I've half spoiled it from the fact of talking about Lee Byung-hun in it, but that was in the question, so too bad.
Yeah.
Um, there's two female characters who talk to each other, and one of them mentions like, "Oh, I'll have to show you a Lee Byung-hun movie." So the fact that they referenced him as the actor and then
Mm.
had the actor in the series, I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen Squid Game, and I probably wouldn't recognise this dude. I probably won't even know who he is when I do see it, so I don't really have an opinion on that aspect of it. But I don't really have anything to add about your glam comments either, because I think you're pretty much on the money there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
TLDR misogyny. Let's move on.
yeah, yeah. Basically, let's move on. I heard a rumor recently that USA President Biden shat his pants during a visit to the Vatican. If this is true, how do you think that diplomatic ties with your country will be affected since the Australian Prime Minister Morrison also allegedly shat his pants? Not allegedly, he did. Anyway,
Engadine.
yes,
Engadine Maccas.
we all know. Also, since Australia recently cancelled their
Hashtag everybody knows.
Also, since Australia recently cancelled their order for nuclear-powered submarines with France, what
Yeah.
likelihood would you estimate of us hearing rumours of French President Macron shitting his pants?
It's like I think he's gonna shit on the Prime Minister's office or something like that instead if he could. Yeah, where do we even start from that? So one, Biden shitting himself would be hilarious. Look, we all know that I'm very much anti-Trump, anti-Republican, but I'm not exactly pro-Democrat either. I think the Democrats have absolutely fucked over politics almost as much as Republicans have by refusing to actually act as a real alternative. So if you think of politics as a wheel, the Republican Party spins the wheel further to the right every time that they're in power. And then whenever the Democrats campaign, they campaign on, progressive policies to get the progressive vote. But then when they're in power, they just keep the wheel as it is. They don't spin it further to the right, but they don't turn it back anymore. And the same could really be said for Australia with the Liberal Party and Labor, but that's another matter.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm not exactly Biden's biggest fan. Obviously, good work on getting the vaccine rolled out. Thanks for at least not having Trump in charge anymore, but do a better fucking job with your healthcare because that shit's still abysmal. Same with the college debt situation. Y'all are fucked. America's a third world country that wears a Gucci belt, I like to say. Continuing on, Scott Morrison absolutely shat himself at Engadine Macca's, as we love to remind everyone.
Yeah, he came
Take
up.
every opportunity that we can.
Yeah, he was on some radio spot recently, and
Oh,
the
Kyle fucking
yeah,
Sandilands.
and the topic wasn't even part of the thing, and Scott Morrison actually said after talking about something completely different, oh, can I just mention this? And then he just said, oh, just by the way, and then he addressed that whole room and said, no, I definitely didn't shit my pants.
Which therefore definitely
which
means he did.
which obviously he did, because why would he bring it up, especially when it wasn't even the topic of discussion? It's obviously
Exactly.
bothering him a whole lot. So we need to make people aware.
Definitely.
So
Yeah, that means we need to absolutely raise the awareness on this issue because this is a high quality political podcast with the essential facts.
that's right. Next question.
I was going to say we
Oh,
can end on the note of French Prime Minister or President, whatever they have.
yeah.
He can take a shit in whatever new submarines we get instead.
Thoughts and or opinions on the upcoming HYBE and Geffen Records girl group?
Yes. So the new Hype Big
I
Girl
don't
group.
don't even know about them.
I know very little. I know that they had an open audition, and I low key wanted my friend was young enough, as in Twitter friend. So she's an adult. I think she's 20 now, but I think she was 19, which was the cutoff limit right when the auditions were happening. And I was joking about showing up the audition as her mother and being like, "Hi, if my daughter makes the girl group, are you going to send her off to Saudi Arabia for blood money too?" So we've got this new girl group. It'll be interesting to see how many English speaking members there are, given that there's definitely another new wave of attempts to break into the English market post BTS's mass buying of charts way of getting their number ones. I mean, if you can do it, you can do it. The Billboard number one thing is theirs. So me being
What
critical of it doesn't take that away. But the fact that they're partnering with Geffen, and for the record, Geffen have produced very successful girl groups in the past, like the Pussycat Dolls were from Geffen. Definitely interesting potential for success on a very big scale, but it depends on who the members are. For some reason, I heard Wonyoung was a potential member, and I was like, dear God, no. But then
what
she's in Starship, and I'm just like, dear God, no.
what do you reckon
I think
at the risk is of how do you think they're going to how good do you think they're going to be at weeding out the people who just want to join to get close to BTS?
that literally was a problem with Glam, funnily enough, that we circle back to that. I can't remember her name, but one of the original members of Glam who pretty much got kicked out like right after the group debuted was like a Sarseng fan of some guy in Super Junior. So like they can't even manage that like for their first girl group. Good luck with them trying to keep them away from BTS. But like I've noticed in general the whole sister brother group relationship in K-pop is really dying off. And honestly, thank fucking God, because I thought it was just the weirdest shit to try and push this image of co-workers being family. Like Willem did it with Lovelyz and Infinite. Like it's Infinite's little sister group every fucking time that they had an appearance, and it really just screwed with their ability to gain momentum as an individual group based on their own talent. Because like Inspirits just resented them a lot for basically piggybacking off of Infinite's name, which, yeah, I can kind of understand the logic of why, but it's not like it's their fault and they're choosing that marketing tactic. So yeah, Lovelyz and Infinite is a horrible example of that piggybacking. SM tends to do it, but they tend to at least, I don't know, they're not as bad about it, I find. Like at least it's quite widespread and not just one group leeching off the other. It's pretty a bit broader, whereas a lot of smaller companies only have one or two sister groups.
Mm.
So it has to be that.
They might
But I mean,
feel
like,
like if they don't do it, they're missing an opportunity.
exactly, exactly. I mean, they've done it with TXT, and there's definitely been resentment from armies. It's a weird crossover, as in like such a huge percentage of TXT's fan base would be armies, more like what I call company stands, as in like there's everything Big Hit does is a perfect company or Hypebeast does is a perfect company, so therefore TXT is an amazing boy group. But you can tell by their album sales that they're better than, say, a Rookie from a completely unknown company, but they're nowhere near the success of BTS. So their piggybacking tactic hasn't paid off the way that Big Hit would have wanted it to. But it's obviously paid off more than not doing it at all, because they've managed to still book, international appearances. And before COVID was a thing, they, I think, at least had a couple of concerts, mini-ish concerts in America. And the scale of the concerts, even though they were mini, I think it was like the PlayStation Theater that Infinite did when they had their American tour back in 2013. So it really does show also how much K-pop has grown in, nearly 10 years or so overseas. So it's like, on one hand, they'll piggyback and they'll get the hype B company stands who are just like, yes, I've been waiting for BTS to have a sister group for so long so that we can have girls show what real music is in K-pop, because that's really that company's delusion, is creating this concept that they're the only company in K-pop who create real music with real artists. So that's obviously a load of shit, but the company stands will eat that the fuck up, because they want an excuse to hate other girl groups that they perceive as competition to BTS, specifically Blackpink. So they'll latch on to this new girl group as a way of competing with Blackpink because of Blackpink's success. That's my opinion.
Um, what do you think it is about? Because on the one hand, you've got like, say, BTS fans who are like, BTS are perfect, and therefore
Mm-hmm.
their company is also perfect, and we have to
Yeah.
be
Yes.
one with the company in BTS and love
Mm-hmm.
everything that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that automatically translates in a lot of cases to them shitting on TXT or another group in their shoes, like possibly this girl group or whatever, when
Because
they
BTS literally built themselves up from nothing, and they essentially built the company, which is what pisses me off when people like praise the company. It's like, the company didn't make BTS famous. BTS made that company famous, and now that company takes all the credit and then gives them an absolute shithouse percentage of those shares. So like, when Big Hit went on the share market and then armies were like, oh my God, they're CEOs, they own so many shares. The shares they own is literally 0.7%, I'm pretty sure, or it's 1.4% of total shares, which equals 0.2 shares of the entire company. So they have fuck all, really. So yeah, each member gets either 0.1 or 0.2 percentage of company ownership. So, fuck all. Um, so the reason that armies the armies that do dislike TXT and will dislike this new girl group is because they think that they're getting, and to a degree they kind of are, they think they're getting their success handed to them on a platter, whilst BTS had to essentially grind and work themselves up from nothing. Whereas this new group is just getting it because of that association to BTS.
But you see this with other. I've seen this with other groups as well to a degree. Like for
Mm.
instance, Tiara when Dyer came out, or Dear or whatever,
Yeah,
they had the same situation. They copped a lot of hate from Tiara fans, and yeah, it just seems really odd to me. I
it's
I
stupid,
get
but
what
at
you're
the
saying, but at the same time,
yeah,
I
it's
don't really
like
understand the
I'm
mindset.
the one saying it. Yeah, exactly. I'm also saying it's stupid too. But at the same point, it's like, it's a business, it's a company. So of course this group is like, this company is going to do whatever they can with this new girl group to
Mm.
get people to buy their music, and they'll use that association to BTS because anything that's associated to BTS and armies sells the fuck out of anything. But like, I wouldn't say logical, because armies and logic are just like an oxymoron. But the logic of disliking it is the fact that when BTS started, the company was literally nothing, and they were recording out of like a garage band kind of situation at one stage for like when they did their American Hustle Life. A lot of the Danger album, the Danger album. It's the album that the single Danger comes from. War of Hormone as well, absolute banger. So a lot of that was basically recorded in a garage studio. So it's like BTS go through all of that. They go through, like, armies have prided themselves on creating that identity of BTS not being like the other girls, like that I'm not like other girls trope. They're basically that. Even though BTS themselves have like tried and like, no, we are K-pop. We're proud to represent K-pop, but army's like, no, you're not. So they've really done a number on this group and on themselves, etc. For which is ironically kind of funny, because it's going to make it so much harder for Big Hit to, like, Big Hit absolutely played into it because it benefits them, because it benefits BTS becoming more successful. So they're more than happy to be like, yeah, this group really is not like all the other hashtag girls, and they're so original. Yeah, that's absolutely the new line of thinking we're running with. We're not like K-pop. Cool, guys, got it. But now that they're trying to launch these new boy and girl groups, because BTS aren't going to exist forever as much as armies love to imagine that they will,
Yeah, they're going to
then
move on eventually.
they can't sell these new boy and girl groups to armies, because their whole perception or their whole identity is on being not like the other companies who got their success and got their fame off the work of their senior artists. So it's a catch-22 that Big Hit really forced himself into, and I just love to laugh at the irony of it, because it's their own fucking fault.
What K-pop moments have had the most lasting impressions on you? Could be events, songs, or groups.
Ooh, that's a really good question. Like, there's definitely serious ones, like the ones that involve loss of life, because that's gonna fucking stick with anybody, particularly when you are attached to these celebrities, even though we don't actually know them as people. Like, I'm a massive Kara fan. So for Guhara to pass away the way that she did, and the manner in which her case has been handled, the misogyny behind her abuse, which led to her taking her life. And that also started not just from the ex-boyfriend, it was from like that appearance, which, on that Star radio show or whatever, where it was like she was basically just slut shamed for dating one guy, and Kyuhyun from Super Junior was like making jokes out of that. So it's just like the misogyny that women in general face in Korea for being idols, and the fact that it cost a woman her life. It's actually multiple women, because you've got to include Sully in that category as well. Like, she was very much an outspoken feminist, and she was definitely treated horribly by media, by people, by fans. I use that in quotations. Yeah, it's like, as much as I want to talk about like all the great bangers and all of the amazing experiences that I've had as a fan of K-pop, and I have had plenty as well, like being in Korea, going to music shows, being within 1 meter's distance from BTS, and actually showing Taehyung my artwork of him personally was a fantastic, amazing experience. So that's like a real life experience that I treasure very much. But, if we're talking like things in K-pop, that has to be like the real standout to me, is the preventable loss of life that's a direct result of misogyny within culture. And that, a lot of that is mirrored in our own Western societies as well. But there's like studies that are showing just the high rate of very much like an incel movement going on in South Korea, and like feminism's a dirty word over there. And like, we absolutely have that, feminism is a dirty word sort of mentality here in the West with incels, but it's like, it's not.
It's
Well,
more
I like to
extreme over
fucking
there.
hope not. Yeah, it really is. It really is. And it's terrifying to think about. And, yeah, it's just like an ongoing issue that doesn't seem to be addressed properly by the so-called progressive government that's currently in power. There's been protests that have been done to try and, boost momentum for it, and he's doing nothing. Meanwhile, an election will eventually be coming up shortly, and the party that is the Conservatives, basically, they've just been kept out of power for so long because of how shit they fucking handled the Sewol ferry incident. But I mean, if they can, with this real shift of movement towards it's like the new generation that's coming up now are the ones that are getting suckered into this alt-right movement and hating feminism.
Keep in
And,
mind
if
though
they
that
start voting.
Korea also has a very aging population, so that young demographic's actually relatively small.
Interesting point. So hopefully the older demographic still remembers the Sewol incident and doesn't vote for this nonsense. But with their,
What do you think's driving it with the young people?
I think it's a common factor for any sort of alt right or dangerous ideology. Is like every conspiracy theory starts from a grain of truth, but then it's twisted so much that it becomes hate, and it's misdirected hate. So the hatred that the grain of sand that, or the grain that they're planting, is more to do with like the work culture that the youth suffer through. So it's like you go to school and you then have to go to the after school training academies that they do, because it's like their education system is so insanely competitive over there. It literally drives many young people to suicide. So the education system itself is flawed. And then after that, you go to university. And then after that, you compete to get into a job. And then that job that you spent all that time in university trying to prepare for doesn't pay you enough of a living wage to be able to live comfortably. So it's like you got to find the blame for something, and particularly conservative governments who've been responsible for creating those kind of situations with their policies that blame poor people for being poor instead of building infrastructure. They will then, instead of, accepting responsibility and blame for their behavior, they'll just be like, oh, it's women's fault. You can't get laid. It's a woman's fault. So yeah, that's a TLDR kind of version on how those sorts of movements gain their traction. It's basically a scapegoat. Hate women, because the women are why you're not getting laid. It's the women who won't stay home and cook and clean for you anymore. That's the real problem. Totally not the rental or housing market. No, women. It's women who did this. Oh, fuck. Yeah, we hate women now. Feminism bad.
Do you think that?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's a very abridged version.
yeah. Um, how did your interaction with K-pop start, and how has it changed over time? Do you see yourself following K-pop well into the future?
My interaction with it initially came from seeing a music video just playing in a shop. It was Sisters' second song, Shady Boy. Good song. Um, so yeah, I was like, oh, this is cool. I asked the person who was like working at the shop, I was like, hey, do you know what song this is? And they're like, oh, it's Sister. So I went home and YouTubed more about it, fell down the rabbit hole essentially. This was in 2011, so I'm now officially in my decade of being a K-pop stan. Someone please put me out of my misery. Um, yeah, it was good times, good times. And then like I remember from there I learned about Shiny. I lived at the time in New South Wales. So anyone who is a K-pop fan from Sydney in the early 2010s would be familiar with a shop called Rong Bao Tang, which used to exist in Chinatown, has since closed down, but thanks for the memories. They used to play like K-pop videos out the front, and like kids would dance outside to them. Like it's a nice little wholesome memories behind there. And they retailed K-pop CDs, so that's like where I initially built up a pretty massive collection of albums from. Since obviously trying to sell a few off just because of space reasons is like it's cool and it's fun to collect, and I don't necessarily regret it because it was something fun to do at the time, but it's just like oh, space storage too much. So yeah, from there I kind of like I attended the K-pop Fest concert that was in 2011 that was held here. Me and my bronze seating ticket, so far up the back, but I'm in like a video clip of footage for like 5 seconds when Kara are playing as like being a stan, when they like record fans in the audience. So there's me for like literally 2 seconds in the crowd when Kara are on. Love that for me because I am, as we all know, a massive Kara stan. Um, and then from there, it kind of became a bit more interesting when like I started getting into being a bit more opinionated on topics. So like your blog was definitely like the pipeline as a bit of a joke there, but the the K-pop stand to critical fan pipeline starts with Asian Junkie,
Yep.
a bit of K-pop anti-K-pop fangirl, and it was like realizing I was 19, so I wouldn't necessarily describe myself as entirely ignorant. I didn't think it was this perfect world, but learning more about the specifics on the flaws in the industry
Yep.
kind of came from your sort of blogs, Asian Junkie, etc. Like really going ham at how much shit all K-pop, which was initially kind of like your first exposure of news, is.
Mm.
So from there, and then it's like I started getting more engaged in active criticism of the industry itself, but stans take that as criticism of artists because they're morons with no comprehension skills. And I remember like I made friends with people who work in the industry from how outspoken I became when I was like temporarily running a YouTube channel, or I had a blog going at one point. And I made friends from that of people who worked in the industry who basically would contact me to like say things along the lines of, oh, thank fuck someone's actually saying the shit that I want to, but I like legally cannot due to my contract. So it's like you're figuring out you're basically able to read between the lines of a lot of situations that are going on, and you're voicing the truth of what's happening, but I can not legally confirm or deny
Hmm.
the accuracy of this.
Yes.
And so I, got a couple of photography gigs, and I got a couple of media passes, which, which I do love to remind people did include BTS's TRB show back when they were like still in their somewhat rookie phase in 2015. So this was like right when they were really starting to blow up, I guess. But, you know, I got free tickets, and all the people who cry in my mentions about how you're not a real fan and you hate BTS and all that kind of rubbish. Well, suck shit, I got free tickets and you probably haven't even still seen them now. And if you want to see them, then tickets are going to be highly competitive. And I was like, you know, a couple rows back for free. And that was before I ended up actually seeing them in the VIP pit when they came to Sydney the next time for the Wings tour, and then seeing them up close twice at Mnet Countdown recordings. Because if you it used to be a lot easier to get into an Mnet Countdown recording than it is now, because I kind of discovered it right when it was like still in that opening phase of like a new thing that they were doing. So it's like you used to just be able to book a ticket, say the day before the show or something like that. Nowadays, it's like they sell out the second they go online, and that's assuming they're even still available anymore, COVID-wise, in like music shows and whatnot. So the time I went to see them first was because pardon me, a lot of people should know that I was a very big fan of Infinite. Love their music, love their discography. Songyeol is the OG, like, opera, love of my life, that kind of business. So when I was living abroad, because I studied in Korea for a semester in 2016, I bought a music ticket, like an Mnet Countdown ticket, to see Infinite nearly every week of their comeback. Me as a broke-ass uni student just spending $100 3 times to go see Infinite up close, because when you get the tickets, you get really fucking good spots, because it's like, you know, you're paying for the experience that other people essentially don't pay for, but line up for fucking hours to get into a recording. So the actual stands hate you because you're front row whilst they've been there all fucking day, and they don't have the option of being able to buy the ticket because it's a foreigner package only. But yeah, I'm not sorry enough to not use it. So, what was it? I booked it for Infinite. It was their goodbye stage of the Eye promotions. And that same week coincided with BTS's comeback for Wings, the album for Wings, which was Blood, Sweat and Tears. Oh, holy shit, that was a fan-fucking-tastic era. That was great. That was before, like, you know, they definitely had some crazy stands, but they weren't what they are today. But yeah, enjoyed the fuck out of that. That was a great time.
This is
Because, you know, if it's a
um, it'll probably I'm just trying to get you back on topic a little. Which
Yeah, well,
is
it's like, how did you get into it? And then it grows from there. It's like, you know, meeting people in the industry, certain industry people liking me for saying the truth that they legally cannot, and then just personal experiences of actually getting to see some of these idols who I already admired to begin with, and then actually getting to see them like up close. Because the time that I saw BTS, let's see, the Wings time, they were also very up close because this is like us being front row. I'm sure if I like looked through it further enough, you can see, like, pretty sure my hair, you can see me somewhat to the side in the audience. The time that I went and saw them for DNA promotions, which was the last time I have seen them, was 2017. And it was like, I was literally, front, you don't see me in the film because there's like, by the time that I'd been there enough, I kind of figured out that if you stand at the corner of the side of the stage rather than, like, you know, front row center, which gives you the best spot when they're actually performing, but there's a section that they come out before they perform where they like wait before their song is up. So if you want to talk to them, that's where you stand. And yeah, I had my notepad with me, and I like to draw, sketch, doodle, and whatnot. And I had a sketch of Taehyung, who, as I'm sure many are aware, is my son and love of my platonic baby son life. And yeah, I got to show Taehyung my drawing of him, and there's footage of that in a BTS army bomb. So yet again, suck shit armies, BTS have acknowledged my existence directly. And Taehyung likes my artwork, and he doesn't know you. I mean, I
The,
just have my fun with what I can.
the question wasn't how many or different ways can you make a BTS fans feel miserable. Although I'm glad you're doing it. Um,
I
this
love it.
the second part of the question, which believe it or not, yet
Mm.
you haven't answered the second part of the question yet, which is, do you see yourself following K-pop well into the future?
Eventually, like, I'm kind of on my phase out era in terms of like, you know, what's it? aespa are a group who are new, who I enjoy the music of. I like the visuals of the concept, like the teaser photos for Next Level are like so aesthetically gorgeous. I just adore it. I love the outfits. I love the actual design, and like there's unfortunate, I guess, side dealings of SM being shady and kind of stealing shit off other artists, which they got into trouble for their initial Black Mamba promos, and how similar it resembled another artists until SM eventually was like bullied into giving them credit, which they should be. And that's not aespa's fault, that's SM's cheap fault. But I love the visuals and the concepts, minus the storyline, which I don't give a shit about. So, like, yeah, I like aespa. I like their music. I like their style. I like their vibe. I love the set design and the actual quality of the videos that are produced and the photos that are produced. So I can definitely still continuously see myself as being a fan of it long into the future. But it's not like I'm going to be running Stan accounts. Like, I really don't give a shit about who wins Best Award at Mama this year. I'm like, oh, fuck, not this again.
Hmm.
It's like, I don't care. I'm not interested in arguing with teenagers. The fact anybody wants my opinion on anything in a podcast like this is baffling because, like, I've been like, I'm sure we could tell many people I've been irrelevant always, but I've been even more irrelevant for, like, since my account got suspended, like, over a year ago. Although, if you search AustralianSana, you still get people talking about me, which is like girl slash guy slash either
The
non-binary
the legacy continues.
inclusivity.
Um,
It's like the biggest legacy that I get, I've noticed from looking up like AustralianSana, is like the picture that I uploaded of myself. Like I just had a generic selfie after we had like an emergency fire drill at uni one day, and I was just like, okay, if I'm gonna be on fire, can we get this over with? I'm fucking cold because it was the middle of winter. Um, So I was just like, yo, if this is a fire drill, can we please just die already? And then like someone quoted, oh my God, you look like Sana. And I literally replied to them, I'm a white woman. No, I don't. But, Twitter being Twitter, that part was just conveniently cropped out. And then like the running gag is I'm the white Australian woman who thinks she looks like Sana. I'm like, no, I fucking don't. But I'm like, I literally just, I can't be bothered to come off private and have to explain that every single fucking time someone wants to run their mouth. Like, okay, you want to believe I think I look like Sana? Be a fucking idiot for all I care. That's my legacy.
Now, the person who asked this question actually wants me to answer it too. They actually specifically said it was a question for both of
Yeah.
us. So I'll just,
Oh, okay. As long as I said it was for both of us and not for just you, because then we would have wasted a fucking shitload of their time.
yes. But I'll, yeah,
We
just
still did that anyway.
briefly how I found out about K-pop was, I mean, I've actually got this written down somewhere, but I'll just retell the stories real quick.
Hmm.
Um, First heard about it when I was in music university. There was a Korean girl in my ethnomusicology class, and she did a presentation on K-pop. She was a HOT fangirl, so her presentation of K-pop was about 99.9% talking about HOT. I think she mentioned that there was also a group called SES at one point, and
Mm-hmm.
but that's but yeah, she's pretty much just talking about HOT for pretty much all of it, and was explaining a bit about their ideas and concepts and how they talk about education system a lot in their lyrics, um,
Hmm.
and
What, you mean BTS aren't the first group to ever address Korean youth problems?
yeah, yeah,
Lies.
yeah. Oh, HOT were all about that, and when I first heard about BTS doing that, I thought, yeah, this is just HOT all over again. quite obviously.
but for the new generation, and then for a
Mm,
generation who doesn't know shit about K-pop, so therefore thinks that they're the first one to do it.
yeah,
Fucking Bang Shi. I'm
yeah.
pretty sure.
If
I
you
am pretty sure Bang Shi Hak literally worked with HOT or GOD, which were like the OGs at the time. So he was involved in that shit.
If you look at stuff like the video for HOT's We Are the Future, it's all very much the same themes as a lot of the BTS stuff, almost exactly. Um, anyway, but I didn't actually, although I was introduced to K-pop at that time, I didn't actually like HOT at all. I thought their music was terrible.
Mm,
But it just got me into the idea that okay, K-pop is a thing that exists, and I just sort of parked it in my mind and sort of forgot about it because because she wasn't playing any music that I liked. Um, it was, their sound was really, really dated. I mean, they sounded like a Western
late
boy
90s,
group
in the
from,
early 2000s. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they sound like a Western boy group from
They were
10
doing
years
like
prior.
1995 Backstreet Boys in 2000,
Yeah, yeah, it just,
which I vibe with as someone who loves the 90s.
yeah, I just thought it was a really bad job, and the production on it was terrible as well. I mean, because I mean, the good thing about that music, is when they get it right, is the production values are good. That's
Mm,
one area that you can't really criticize, Western boy pop about. They always had they spent a lot of
mm,
money in the studio, and whereas
mm.
the Korean stuff didn't really have that going for it, not at the time
Yeah,
anyway.
not at the time for
Um,
sure. You get that really washed out white video vibe, like,
Yeah, you get the washed out white videos and the music's and just sonically it's very dull. They hadn't really discovered things like proper compression and or excitation. So when they go to the rap, half of the syllables you can't hear them properly and stuff like that. So it's just, they learned those
sounds
crafts
like a YouTube
eventually,
cover.
but it took them a while. So anyway, when I next really ran into it, when I was actually on tour with my punk band, and I was in Melbourne, just when my bands tour, they all go and hang out at other people's houses and get drunk and do drugs, and I just go into town and shop and and eat at
Mm.
restaurants, because I like music, but I don't really care about rock and roll lifestyle stuff, and I'm not very social, so. So I just do that shit and then I meet them at the gig. So I was just wandering around and I found it was probably the Melbourne branch of that store you
Like
mentioned in
Long Belt
Sydney.
Tang kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they did have a Melbourne store as well.
yeah, because they had a Melbourne store, and I just wandered into that randomly because I was bored. So, it's this weird Asian store. Let's check it out, and and they had all these huge posters up of Girls' Generation that look fantastic,
Mm.
and all these other groups. And so I thought, well, this is looks like some fucking weird shit. And it's just like this whole universe of, it's like walking into a record store with like 200 artists on the shelf and you haven't heard of any of them. It's just like a real trip.
Mm.
So I thought, well,
Yeah.
um, this is, kind of trippy. So I want to hear some of this shit. So I just picked up a couple DVDs. One of them was just like a Girls' Generation compilation of
Yeah, it
various
was like those
videos.
artificial fake ones as well.
Yeah, they would always flog off those sort of cheap DVDs that were just pirate versions of
Yes, that is
compilations of
absolutely like my
videos.
first purchase until, yeah,
Yeah,
that was my
I've
first
still
purchase
got
as
some of
well.
them.
That's
They're
like what I
great.
did with it. Yeah.
And
And like they have like a mix of music videos and like Mnet countdown
mm,
recordings.
yeah, and the other thing that I bought was actually X Japan, one of their live shows, um, and I took them both home, and but the Girls' Generation was really, really interesting, because it was mainly Girls' Generation on the video. I think there might have been a couple other groups at
Yeah.
the end, because you know what those pirated DVDs are like. If they run out of songs for
Yeah.
one group, they'll just stick some other random group songs on at the end just to
Yeah,
fill up the
that happened
space.
with like a Beast one that I got. Yeah, I
um,
remember that so vividly.
yeah, and it's like, wow, this is cool. And then I started investigating some of the other
Yeah,
groups from there. Um, and
absolutely. It's like a rabbit hole.
Yeah, um, and I started writing about it because, well, the whole Tiara scandal thing happened,
Mm.
and I was also doing a radio show. I thought, well, I might as well. I was looking for something different to do on the radio show, so I thought on the radio station. So I thought, I'll do a K-pop show. So I started doing a K-pop show, and then I started finding out about, all the, I started following A-pop anti-K-pop fangirl, and then later writing for them. Started following Asian Junkie, and then later writing for him. Um, and I found it.
Cheap bastard, pay your writers.
Yeah, I know, scumbags. Anyway, um, um, and they and so that got me into the idea of, okay, well, you don't have to just believe, there's this whole current undercurrent of things going on, and
Mm.
and I found out about the
We're like the punk of K-pop. We're the punk movement of K-pop,
yeah, something like that, I don't know, and um,
the anti-culture.
and when the Tiara scandal happened, that
Mm.
really got me thinking, because of the radio show, I'd sort of met quite a lot of people who are into K-pop, because I was getting invited to all these events and things, and Um, and heaps of people were into Tiara. They were a really popular group in early 2012.
Yeah,
Though it's hard to underestimate.
Lovey Dovey was fucking huge.
Yeah, yeah, they were very big, and and then that scandal happened, and then all these people who just love this group, all of a sudden they were like, "Oh, I don't like them anymore because of the scandal." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" Doesn't the actual
Mm.
music actually mean anything to you? And then I figured, well, I guess for these people it doesn't. And I just thought that was really sad. Um, that people's opinions on music can change because of stuff which has got nothing to do with music at all. I find, and especially,
Yes and no.
and from
Yes and no. Like, I will agree with that, as in it's really sad that the opinion can change, but on something that wasn't factually true. I think that, like with someone like Chris Brown, who literally assaults women, like
mm,
the Rihanna incident, like I don't think he should ever be able to have a music career, because it's like, I know everyone talks about like separate the art from the artist, but no. Like if your art to the artist is still someone who, is literally committing crimes that are violent against minorities, be it, like homophobia, misogyny, etc., then nah, cancel the fuck out of it. But that's not what Tiara did. So therefore, that's why I think that the whole canceling thing was rubbish.
well, I mean, I guess I've obviously got a very different view on that, right? Because I've been into punk music, and I was listening to, like, Gigi Allen and stuff like that, and people who've been in jail for things that I
Mm.
don't condone, but I've always been able to separate it out for whatever reason. Um, Probably just because, I don't know, probably being in the business, I just kind of, it's like, well, everyone's
You kind of have to when you're in the business, because like I'm a wrestling
oh,
fan at the moment right now, and like there's like this whole speaking out movement in wrestling on like professional wrestlers who have committed certain, usually against women, disgusting acts. And like quite a few of them is like there's this industry attempt to pretend that they care about it, but like a lot of the more famous names are just getting swept under the rug and continuing to get booked and shit.
yeah, look, I just think, they're all assholes, really. Everyone's an asshole in some form, and if I start applying those sort of standards to what I listen to, I just have to throw out so much of my fucking music collection that it's just impossible for me to, I just have to separate the art from the artist just to be able to enjoy music at all. It just doesn't work otherwise. Um, I and but it and that just made Tiara seem even more silly, because I'm thinking, right, like I'm listening to like Burzum and stuff like that, and
Mm.
and and the people I know who listen to that, I mean, I know Aboriginal people who listen to Burzum, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
and don't have a problem, and they know he's a racist asshole, and they don't care. They're like, I like the music, I don't give a fuck. Well, I know he's a dickhead, so what? Um, and so, and it just amazed me that K-pop couldn't have, maybe I'm not saying they have to go all the way into that attitude, but but a little bit more than we think. Maybe someone might have been mean, possibly, according to a view video
Mm.
captures. Therefore, we hate these people, and we want them to give up
Mm.
music. That's just like, whoa. So when I heard about that, I was like, and so things like that started coming up, and but I couldn't really talk about that on my radio show because I wanted to play music on the show. And if I start just talking about this shit, well, why would anyone care about this stuff if they just want to hear music? Then they want to hear a bunch of boring crap. And I don't really want to push that stuff onto people if they're just appreciating the music, because in my view, appreciating the music is what you should be doing. But I still
Mm.
wanted to talk about these things and about how ridiculous they were. And so that's kind of why the writing started, and I didn't ever write a complete. I didn't ever want to write a complete, let's just debunk the Tiara scandal post. I don't actually have a post like that, but I thought, well, I can use that as a jumping off point to write about a whole bunch of stuff and get to the underlying issue of the way people think, which to me was the point. Um, do I see myself following K-pop into the future? Well, yeah, probably, because the blog's just sort of taken off, and it's sort of taken me along with it, and um, yeah, and I've had to sort of bring down the level of what I do a little bit. Um, I can't write as prolifically as I did 5 years ago because I'm just too busy now. But I'll still try and create content that I enjoy. I regret giving it up. So and there's still occasionally good songs. The level of quality of songs hasn't really changed all that much. Um, there were shit songs back then. There's still shit songs now.
Mm.
It's just that the shit songs from back then, you tend to forget about them. They sort of vanish into the back of your memory. Whereas all the
Mm-hmm.
trends that are happening now, you still notice them because they annoy you every
Mm-hmm.
day. um, Here's a question: how to deal with Lovely's disbandment? They are my top hit or miss ratio group. Well, at least except the last album.
Mm-hmm.
That's a question for you and me, I think.
I'd imagine so, because yeah, like I've definitely been a fan of Lovelyz in my time.
Hmm.
How do I say it? It's just like, William's a shit company, so it's kind of like congrats on getting out. Like this is a similar
Yeah.
deal to when GFriend disbanded, because like
Hmm.
when I am a fan of groups, I don't ever expect them to last forever. I kind of expect it to be that 7 years and you're out to your freedom. So it's like
Hmm.
I appreciate the group for what they did and the music that I still have of theirs to listen to and continuously enjoy. Because, just because they disband doesn't mean that the discography disappears.
Hmm.
So long as you actually download it properly and not just rely on Apple Music and Spotify, because sometimes companies can be shit cunts and delete past artists off of those platforms. Cough Tiara, unfortunately, for some.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like I enjoyed the songs I got out of them. Definitely sad that I won't be getting more music from them in the future. Rocket Punch is kind of like Williams shoving out a replacement group because, companies are only capable of supporting one girl group at a time and they always go for the younger one. I would say Rocket Punch have a very different vibe of what Lovely's produced, but there's a couple of good songs in there. And yeah, it's kind of just like, it's shit, but what can you do?
Hmm.
At least be grateful that they're out of out of out of the dungeon.
Hmm.
And like William have really been doing nothing with them for like since the last album came out, which I'm pretty sure is over a year ago. Baby Soul, I feel like never really got the proper push that she deserved because her pre-debut solo stuff was actually really good quality music. Like she does ballads, and we're both very hit and miss on ballads, but
Hmm.
I actually really enjoyed her ballads. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's kind of like it's sad, but it's also very expected because there were
Yeah.
rumors going on around it for a while.
With Willem's groups, you always know when they're sort of petering out because the releases just sort of dry up. It's not like G-Friend where they were sort of consistently pumping out tracks, and then it's like went from there's a new track coming out soon maybe to bang it's over. With Willem
Mm.
you can see it coming. It's like yeah you've given up on this group. Yeah. So I cope with it fine because I was like, well, yeah, that's no shock.
Hmm.
Um, Next question. There's, I find this hilarious, this question, and so will you. You used to have sizable K-pop centric social media accounts like Tata Adventures. Do you miss having the clout?
No, because Tata Adventures still exists. He's not dead.
Hmm,
Tata is my son, and he,
hmm,
functions pretty. He comes along with me. I carry him around, but
hmm. Has Tata been in the ring?
Yes, he has.
Hey.
I do have one post of Tata in the wrestling ring.
Yep.
Like, Tata still comes around with me everywhere. Like, I've been outspoken on the fact that I am autistic.
Mm.
So, Tata is very much like a sensory sort of item, like a comfort object. And I, bring him around everywhere. I still take pictures of him on a semi-regular basis. The Instagram is definitely active, but like I just don't post all the time because it's like I work 5 days a week at the moment. I have Muay Thai, I have wrestling. I don't really go to that many new different places.
Mm.
Um, and it's like part of Tata's content is just like finding new things for him to do, whereas I just don't really have that many um,
You got a
new
pattern.
things to,
Yeah.
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 It's like I don't want to just be posting the same content, but every now and then I, come across some things.
Yep.
So yeah, I post it when I get an idea. And yeah, like I absolutely don't miss the clout side of things. If anything, like I have social anxiety, so the clout literally made me feel like physically sick,
Mm.
like anxiety wise over it. Like when I was running Tata Adventures and he was in his prime, it was just like this dread of knowing that the armies would discover it and then they would be like, it's you running this site. It was you all along and you're this horrible person. And I was like, basically like, when I was in the peak of the account before it was coming, I kept trying to like allude to this fact that like you can like, in the actual Tata Adventures expose blog that I wrote about myself getting exposed. I mentioned the fact that their tweets that were up there were like, hey, the posts that you see on Tata Adventures are like very specific, best parts of my personality. They're very, catered to the specific brand of a character that I've created because Tata is like the representation of all the good parts of my personality. I'm not going to post my angry rant tweets on my Tata account because Tata is not an angry character. He's just soft and he's cute and he's plush and he's lovable. And so
Mm.
it's like that still is what that Tata Adventures account is. It exists. And I still keep it, even though the clout is long gone, because there's a number of people who just enjoy it still, even if it's 14 people who leave a like. Those 14 people are liking what that content was always made to be.
Yep.
And then AustralianSana as an account was also like, it was definitely fun. Again, I've posted about it at different point. I'm sure I could like send the links to the pictures that are what my tweets were suspended for. But it was basically like armies mass harassing my account on a daily basis, and the account got suspended from like reporting tweets with like
They were benign.
keywords in
Yeah.
it that yeah, that
Yes.
Twitter's algorithm picks up. So like, for example, I was like, oh, if Arya dies on Game of Thrones, I'm going to kill the writers. That was literally like one of the tweets. So it's like it had kill and it had die in it. So therefore it was a death threat and my account got suspended. And then like I tried to appeal that. And then just because of the sheer mass number of reporting against my account, Twitter's algorithm is like, oh, this is actually problematic person. It's like, no, you've just enabled a safety measure that has been completely overruled by dogpiling, so it's very flawed. But I
Mm.
mean, I'm not crying about it. I actually, for everyone who does know, I run a private account which has about 300 followers, and I follow roughly 300 people. It's like roughly the same kind of follower to follower ratio, and it's like the people who I made friends with on Twitter who I genuinely consider to be very close friends. And 300 is a number of close friends, probably a bit high, but some of them are a bit inactive. Some of them have their own multiple accounts, and it's just like a nice way to stay in touch with the people who kind of like went to bat for me in times that they never had to, and like put themselves in the path of the same kind of abuse that I was facing on a daily basis. So it's like sometimes people who are strangers on the internet will do more for you than supposable real friends in real life. And the fact that I can maintain those connections and often like, often those connections exist outside of Twitter. Like, I think, we can contact each other on Skype if I need to. And I've got a couple of other people's phone numbers or Kakao accounts or like Instagrams or Twitters, etc. And then I have a separate account for wrestling, because as I'm sure we're aware, that's my current passion and hobby. And I've made like similar kind of new friends, the way that you can make friends on Twitter for common interests. I've made friends like that from wrestling now, which I'm very happy about. And I deliberately try to stay away from the K-pop side of things. Kind of accidentally had a smash post like 2 days ago about Rose. Because every now and then it's like I drop a K-pop reference in there, because it's like I just want to introduce my new friends to like my current interests and hobbies, but I'm not trying to get smash tweets out of it.
Yeah, I saw the post and I saw that going large and you sort of going, hang on, everyone, stop. Shut
up. It's like me. I'm so funny. Why don't I get the credit I deserve for being hilarious? Me gets credit for being hilarious. Fuck up, shut up, fuck it. Okay, stop. I'm never satisfied.
A related question. I remember that you had G-Friend and Lovely's dance covers on YouTube at one point. Did you delete them, and if so, why?
They're private. I don't think I ever did a full G-Friend cover on YouTube. The Lovelies one I did, and it got featured in an episode of After School Club, which was cool. The Lovelies one that I did was like right after I came out of hospital. And when I was in hospital, one of the things that I kind of had is like, a bucket list item was doing like a proper K-pop cover with like memorizing the full choreography and actually dressing in the outfit. And yeah, I had a really nice time filming that, but also looking back on it, there's definitely a bit of cringe there just because I can see the movements are stiff. I'm not that great of a dancer, but I did love the outfit. Yeah, I don't have regrets over it, but I mean, when I'm in my peak getting jumped era on Twitter, the last thing I really particularly want is stans going through
your
like my
videos.
YouTube videos and then like uploading the worst possible clips and screenshots to be like, oh, she wishes, because like the weirdest shit that gets said about me of like, like, oh, she nearly made it into Blackpink, but she hates Rose because she took her spot. I'm like, how the fuck did y'all come up with that? Like, I was in the same room with her for 5 seconds probably at the Chatswood YG in general auditions, which actually accepted 4 people out of thousands, and I wasn't there to like get in. I was there as like a new fan to K-pop who'd been into K-pop for less than a year, to kind of just get a face-to-face experience of like what anything to do with K-pop was like in person. Because, if you live in Australia, particularly about 10 years ago when K-pop was a lot more of a niche, you don't really get that many concerts. You don't get that many things. So it was just wanting to go along and see something face to face and experience something to do with K-pop. It was never about expecting to actually get cast in a girl group in YG. I mean, I'd get fired in one day after calling him a cunt. I'm pretty sure we're aware I would not survive a K-pop trainee process. This was also before my lungs started collapsing as well. So hypothetically, if I ever had have made it over to Korea, I never would have been able to survive the training process, because they would have sent me home when I became like a physical liability to any group. And that's obviously then disregarding just the severe lack of talent. So, and the fact that I'm like 5'10" and most girl group members are about like 5' nothing to 5'7", probably, with the odd exception of a few tall groups like G-Friend. Like Jennie and Jisoo in Blackpink are very petite. They're like low 160s. I'm 178 centimeters tall. We're not going to be in the same group. Otherwise, it's like literally me being a giant next to them. So, never resented Rose for taking my spot, as much as rumors on Twitter would love you to believe. I am very much a pro Rose account, to the point that my non-K-pop account literally ended up promoting Rose just because it's my nature. Because yeah, I highly enjoy her. I wish her literally nothing but the best.
What niche do you think SM is trying to fill with aespa's music and concept? This person says it seems to be a Blackpink clone rather than FX successor.
I would almost put KDA a bit more, like this fusion, like Blackpink meets KDA.
Yep.
Like I say, if the music is good, I don't care who's getting ripped off. So, I mean, I'm vibing. Like, I like Savage. I understand why it might not be everyone's cup of tea. But I think it's fun. I like the campiness of it. I actually enjoy the music, and I really actually like the mini album as a whole. My favorite B-side off of the album, if anyone cares, is Yappy Yappy. That is a fucking banger. And like that is such a hype song that really just makes you feel good about yourself when you're listening to it. It's just like, yeah, put that on, bop to that. And it's like, yeah, I'm fucking yappy, bitch. It's good. It's good. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think that both yourself and Asian Junkie don't really like Next Level, but I love Next Level. I loved the visual of it. I loved the actual song.
Mm.
I really, really, really like the choreography. So for whoever was asking about like the where's your K-pop cover dances, I potentially might be making one, but just for my own, like not publicly, doing my own little dance cover to yeah, I've started learning the choreography to Next Level, so I can do that bendy arm thing that they do, like the actual point choreography of it. But I want to learn the whole routine because I do like dancing. I might not be good at it, but I like to do whatever I want, even if I'm good at it or not.
I think you make an interesting point there that I reckon, yeah, aespa's model might actually be KDA, especially when you think about the whole virtual idol thing or whatever.
You
Um,
know, which I don't particularly like that much, and I've openly expressed not liking as
well,
part
it's
of that
barely in
concept.
aespa anyway. I mean, you get about 2 seconds
Yeah,
worth of that
I think they
content
might
per
have
aespa
seen the
video.
backlash to it. I hope that they saw the backlash to it and therefore reduced the level of inclusion, because from the teasers and from the introductory videos, it did seem like it was going to be a lot more at the forefront of creating these like characters who fans could directly interact with as replacements for the idol in a way. And I was just like, nah, nah, not liking it, not liking this idea that fans can kind of like get this delusion. It's like really fostering that sassing delusion of like, yes, this is my character. This is my idol. I own this person. And like, yeah, you're owning AI or AE Karina rather than the real one. But do you think that people who get so deludedly obsessed with these celebrities, they perceive them as owning them, are going to really make that difference in their mind?
Yeah, it hasn't really
It's
panned out anyway, so yeah, you'd
like,
probably
imagine if there was like AE Nyan and he could like obsess over AE
it'd
Nyan.
probably be a good thing. Probably stop him harassing the
You'd
real one
think
so
that,
much.
like, yeah, you'd think that, but then he wouldn't recognize that as being the fake version. He would just, yeah, consider it like more encouragement from
Well,
the real one who's speaking through the AE to him.
maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
But you get the idea.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I guess you don't really know how someone like that's going to react, but um,
Like, and when we talk about KDA, like KDA are completely fictional, whereas like Ace was based on real people.
hmm.
So that's your real differential between them. But they also do have similar style music. And I know you weren't that big of a fan of KDA, but I fucking loved Pop Stars. That's like one of my best of tracks for that year.
Yeah, I wasn't into it, and I'm not really.
That's so good. So good.
It just sounds like a League of Legends song. All those League of Legends songs, they have the same sound, whether it's
I get it. Like,
KDA or
I
it's
kind of
Imagine
get it.
Dragons or any of
Oh,
those
yeah.
groups. They,
Imagine Dragons is League of Legends?
yeah, they did. They probably did the best out of the League of Legends songs, I think.
Oh,
Even though I don't really like them either, but they had a song that was all right. Um,
hmm.
and they've done every year. There's another big song that comes out that always sort of gets paired up with the promotions for the League of Legends finals, and done by some high-profile artist, and they all have they're very clearly written to the same template. They have exactly the same type of sound, um, and yeah, and that song KDA song's got that sort of sound. As for aespa, I mean, I don't hate them. Nothing's made me go ooh yuck, but like they haven't really grabbed me yet either. I'm waiting for the song that really gets me into them. Um,
Hmm.
the next question also about aespa. Do you think you'd be able to hit the high notes sung by Winter and Ning Ning and Savage?
I can't hit low notes, man. I can't fucking sing at all.
I can hit low notes, but yeah, that won't help me there. I
I
can't.
mean, like, I love screaming it in the car when I'm on my way to work just as for fun and vibes, but I mean, I am not a good singer. And I've never made any claims to be.
What did you dress up for as Halloween? As
Kick ass, hit girl.
Ah, okay. I actually saw your dress up on social media, but I didn't recognize what it was.
Yeah, it wasn't that great. It was very last minute because my boss is an American and he super loves Halloween, as I'm sure you can imagine a lot of Americans do. And he's kind of sad it's not much of a thing in Australia,
Hmm.
which I've always found hilarious because Australians are like, oh, we don't do Halloween here. That's an American thing. I'm like, mate, do you think we fucking invented Christmas? Do you think we fucking invented Easter? Like, what's the fucking difference? Let me get my free candy, bitch.
I like
Um,
Halloween because my girlfriend's a goth, and when
uh,
we can, it's the one day of the year that all her and the goth friend, they can sort of go out and do their thing and not get picked on because it's expected.
yeah.
It's like we're doing it for
I
Halloween,
mean,
so fuck you.
I just really like there's so many things about Halloween that I love. For one, like the costume I had this year was definitely rushed, but basically like as I was kind of saying a bit before, the boss likes Halloween, so I was like, "Oh, can I actually dress up?" And he was like, "Hell yeah." And I was like, "Fuck yes." So I had to rapidly put a costume together. My hair is currently purple, so initially I was thinking Leela from Futurama and doing like some face paint to make the eye, but
Mm,
my hair is also now above shoulders because I get the shits when it gets long and I just cut it off because I can't stand the time it takes to wash and dry and blow dry, etc. So yeah, it's short and I was like, oh fuck, I need like extensions or a wig and I just couldn't find a purple wig. So it went from Leela to Hit Girl because Hit Girl wears purple hair in Kick-Ass 1 and Kick-Ass 2. The outfit is very much like a casual sort of cosplay. Like there's the part that makes it the costume was basically like a black Zorro style mask that she wears along with a black cape. And then her character in the movie wears like, a much more costume style clothing of like, it's like a purple fitted leather jacket with a black and purple plaid skirt and then purple tights with knee pads and certain boots. And I was like, I'm obviously not going to find an identical match to that. So I kind of just did like a purple top with a black leather jacket that I did have over it, and then just a black pleated skirt with tights, and then the knee pads that I wear to wrestling, and a pair of Timberlands. And I'm like, that'll do. And yeah, I just wore it to work. As I've kind of talked about a bit in the past, I live in Tasmania. I'm relatively new, been here about a year. Just unfortunately did not have the friend circle to really actually do much for Halloween this year. Not to say I don't have friends. I do have friends. They're just in different states right now. And with border closures, which is like, I think Americans would be like, what's a border closure? But like in Australia, it's very restricted where you can travel to. I'm hesitant, but also excited to eventually be able to go back to New South Wales where my best friends are. And like, I'm already planning Halloween for next year. I'm going fucking all out because like, I wanted to go heavy for Halloween this year. And I just, you know, thought I was making the right friends, but, without bitching about people too much in real life and bringing that into the podcast, disappointment.
hmm.
People suck.
Yeah, it happens.
Need to make better friends.
But anyway, you have to
So yeah.
provide photos for of your Halloween costume so people can
Ah,
listeners can see
ah. They know who I
it.
went as. I just described it.
It's not the same as seeing a photo. Next question. What's your favorite song by T.I.?
I literally only know one, and that's you can have whatever you like.
You know one more than
You
me.
can have whatever you like. T.I.'s a rapper, but he's also a blatant misogynist who treats his daughter like shit.
The only
He
reason
has
I
like he does like virginity checks on her, and that's like shit that I've read off Twitter, and I'm just like,
right.
that's disgusting because you objectify the fuck out of women in your rap
Vi
music
virginity
content,
check. What is
but
he?
you,
Is he like check she's got a
um,
hymen or something?
I think so.
Ooh,
It's something really, really gross and outdated that he does. You'd have to
fuck.
Google it to like know specifically what it is, but I don't think either of us want that in our search history. But he's very, very, misogynistic when it comes to his own child versus the way he actually uses women in props in his music content.
The only reason why I even know who T.I. is because Korean rapper Evia drops his name in a song.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he says something about T.I. and Shake, and I thought, who's T.I.? And then I found he was a rapper, and I still haven't heard any of his music. I'm planning to
Oh,
die
that
and I
was
haven't
just, I
heard
mean,
it.
it was a number, like, you'd probably recognize it if you heard it and looked it up. It's like, it was a number one song in the country for a few weeks, but if you're working in radio, I'd assume you probably would have heard it. It's like,
Oh,
but I'm tone deaf, so I can't exactly sing it.
it's not big with the radio that I worked at. Um, they're sort of.
God, I wish that were me.
um, I've actually been skipping over a lot of questions that are kind of crappy, or that have been double
Mhm.
ups. So just trying
Yep, yep.
something different. Also, because we're spending quite a bit of time answering each one, so I'm just trying to keep it
Yeah,
moving.
that's my problem, as always.
But I will, but we'll go for some other questions. And here's one. Let's say a theoretical man were to stick his hand up his male friend's ass in an unfortunate accident, while both men are in sweaty shorts at a hot gym. What K-pop song do you believe most closely embodies the awkward tension between the two once the accidental groper calls his friend in arrangement or rhythm, etc.?
I feel like that's such a weirdly specific question that I almost can't come up with one, but I feel like my friend would instantly be recommending Wonho's solo stuff. So it sounds like a Wonho sort of thing.
Uh, Fisting at the gym?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Wonho, a lot of homoerotic implied content, very buff from the gym. I
Mm,
don't know enough about Wonho's music. Not that I don't dislike him or anything. Like, I love what he's doing for himself and like, good for you, bestie. But just like, not necessarily my vibe as someone who likes girl groups a lot more than men. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I generalize that as a Wonho sort of content.
Wino content. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think Linauchi Tiger is coming. That's what I think. That's my answer. Um, I keep seeing videos of Australian police beating up protesters. Are Australian cops
Hmm.
known to be abusive of their power? Do you think it's a good thing that they do you think it's a good thing that they don't have guns? They do have guns, you idiot. Just because
They do have
just
guns.
because they don't
There was
get them out
literally butting in to say that there was literally a shooting today
right,
of a police officer who shot a First Nations person today.
right.
So like on the day that we are recording this podcast. So like I don't want to proclaim myself as like a champion of Aboriginal rights because I literally don't know enough, and Aboriginal people should be able to speak for themselves, but to try and platform that issue in whatever way I can and debunk any myths of, Australia not being as bad as America. A First Nations person was shot today by Australian police, and I'm pretty sure that they died.
But
So
that does
Australian police are absolutely. I mean, if you look at Aboriginal deaths in custody, I think the report from the Royal Commission was from the early 90s. And since then, there have been 436 deaths of Indigenous people in custody and zero actual like convictions
hmm,
as a result. Something that I will point out as a statistic as well is the percentage of First Nations people in Australia. They represent something like 2%, if not less, of the population, versus African Americans in the USA, who make up, I think, approximately 10%, if not potentially higher. So it's like they make up more of the percentage, which does give them somewhat more of representation, even if that representation is still very minor and, still a shitload of oppression happening to them on a systemic level. In Australia, it's so minor, the population that is left, and to be brutally honest about it, the reason that percentage is so low is literally a direct result of systemic genocide that happened from the original European settlers to the forced removal of children that was still going on, I think, until the 60s, and then now the stolen generation. And then even now it's kind of like being replaced with a alternative stolen generation where instead of, government removes the black child from the black parents because we don't want black babies, it's just government removes black child from black parents for, quote, safety, child protection. and then they place them with a white foster family. So there's movements that people are trying to push for, where it's like, if you do have to remove an Aboriginal child from an Aboriginal home, then place them in another Indigenous home. So yeah, there's a lot of issues. So if you're talking about like police beating up protesters, compare the way that protesters were treated in Melbourne with like the anti-vaxxer protesters, the ones that are on the far right, who are far right protesters, and you don't see them getting tear gassed. You don't see them getting beaten the way that Black Lives Matter protesters were getting beaten. So there's definitely a far right movement within our police force. The Chief Commissioner of Police, I think his name is Mick Fuller. He is very linked to the Australian hard right conservative Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Like, they're literally neighbours, and Mick Fuller talked about taking out his rubbish bins for him when Morrison was away one time. So they're like buddy BFFs, and they go to the same evangelical church. So I will use any opportunity to slander religion being involved in politics, and how that is very often linked to far right and racist causes. So yeah, it's like there's corruption within the police on so many levels. In Australia, Australia gets kind of more of that laid back Aussie, oh yeah, g'day mate, how you going, kind of rep overseas. But the level of racism that exists in this country is horrific, and it's not spoken about widely. There's pushes for it to be spoken about more, and there's voices that are doing the work from a grassroots level. I try to, like when the Black Lives Matter movement was really at its peak last year for George Floyd, and, you know, speaking about using clout from Tata, like, I used my Tata accounts to promote like GoFundMe's that were directly fundraising for, you know, property damaged Black owned businesses, rather than just being a generic Black Lives Matter charity, because you don't really know who's running those sorts of charities where millions and millions of dollars are really being poured in. So, you know, try and go for a grassroots one if you can, because you know it's directly going to a person. And in Australia, the one that I've been following the most for, and I would encourage anybody who listens to this to follow, is Warriors of the Aboriginal Resistance. You can find them on Facebook. I'm pretty sure they probably have an Instagram as well. But yeah, Warriors of the Aboriginal Resistance, who I get a lot of information from, that I try and stay updated with, just so I'm aware of what's going on in my own country and can speak on issues like this when I'm directly asked about them.
There you go. Um, well, good thing someone asked. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, Australian cops do have guns here. I mean, look, on a percentage basis, I don't think we have the same type of tactics that American police forces do. So I think shootings are rarer in general. Um,
There was something else about like Australian, like, I'm pretty sure it was Commissioner Mick Fuller. He's like the highest paid police commissioner in the world as well. So like, similar kind of deal on like government corruption and like paying off the cops, and, you know, it's systemic problems.
oh yeah, of course. I mean, and look, I don't think you'll find a police force in the world that doesn't have problems like that. To be honest, seems to be just the nature of the beast. Um,
Yeah, and that's obviously where you get movements like ACAB from.
mm, um, so, but yeah, but the 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 tactics that American police forces use are very uniquely American, where they just get their guns out constantly, and you don't really see that in a lot of other places in the world to the same extent. I mean, some you do, but a lot you don't. But that doesn't mean that those forces don't have guns. Australian cops have had guns since as long as I've ever known them to be around. I think it's um, only England and a few other places like that where they don't carry guns, and even then the regular police don't carry, but there's still other police forces that do carry. So so yeah, just want to explode that myth along with all the other stuff. But yeah, cops here are, you know, um,
Pigs.
I mean, a lot of my dealings with cops have been all right. But then, having said that, I look I,
Again, we're
I
both
look
white
I look
people.
like a
Like,
white
I could,
person. So yeah,
like, again, it's like, if I speak on my personal experience of police,
mm,
like they have been positive.
mm,
Like there was a time I got pulled over for speeding and it was like I was way above the speed limit. I shouldn't have been doing it. I was in the wrong. I literally have not sped in my car since because, it's one thing to risk my life to be responsible for injuring another person. I would not be able to live with myself if I did that. And the cop was like very much the person who reinforced that message to me. And ever since that, I was just like, I agree with that. um, and if my learning curve for that moment was a policeman pulling me over, lecturing me, giving me the fine that I deserved as well. So it's not like I was just like a white woman tiered my way out of it. Like I copped the fine. But the fact that I got spoken to in that way, that it was like a learning experience, that I was capable of learning and listening and taking the advice, which, I was, but, black people deserve that same benefit of the doubt as well in those situations. Um, but and yeah, obviously I have not sped since then
mm.
because if I'd rather my learning experience be me getting my ass handed to me on a verbal level and being shamed and humiliated, which I deserve to be for doing the wrong thing, and that rather than actually being in a crash and actually injuring another person. So, that was my learning experience, and the fact that my learning experience happened that way is something I'm grateful for, and that's indirectly something I have to be grateful for the police force for doing for me. There was a time when like something of mine got stolen on the train, and I made a police report. They actually looked into it. They reviewed the footage. They recognized the perpetrators, but because they didn't have the object in their hand on the camera, they couldn't pursue it further at the time. But then they were like, look, we're keeping an eye on these people because we know who they are and they've done this before. And the third time I had an interaction with the police was basically one time at a horrible, horrible previous job I had. I don't know if I've mentioned this story before, but basically there was a car accident that happened out the front of my
You did
work,
tell
and I
me
was the
about
first.
this. Yeah. Yeah, and your employer
Yeah,
was being a dick about it.
their employer was a dick and was like, get back to work. And I'm like, dude, I literally have to be here for the
Mm,
ambulance. And then the police officer who arrived at the scene later took my details as the first responder, told me I'd done the right thing, and then went and told off my boss for yelling at me when I had been doing the right thing and the boss was wrong. So it's like I've got three different experiences of cops,
So the cops
three
have been
positive
lovely to
experiences,
you. They've been lovely to you all this time, and here you are hating
but
them,
I
saying they're
am a
all
privileged.
bastards. Maybe,
Well,
maybe
that's
if you're
the
black, they
thing.
would have been
Like,
nice to you as well. You don't know.
yeah.
Could have been.
Well, the thing is, everyone deserves that standard of treatment by police. So if I'm getting that treatment, then every other person in the country deserves that kind of standard of treatment. And then when you see black person getting shot by cop on TV this morning as the news,
Mm,
that's a pretty crystal clear example that not everyone is getting the same benefit of that doubt.
mm,
And then you see there was news that was happened last year, and it was right around the time of George Floyd, where it was like a police officer tackled a 17-year-old or 16-year-old Aboriginal kid to the ground and like slammed his head on the concrete. And it's like, if George Floyd wasn't trending, what are the odds that that would have made it on the
yeah.
news? Because it's such a regular occurrence here. So, you mentioned before, they do have guns, but they don't always use the guns
Mm.
because they don't want to end up as a shooting news story, but they'll physically assault and abuse people. So again, like the standard, when we say ACAB, when we say cops are pigs, it's not cops are pigs to me. It's the cops are pigs to people who they can get away with exerting power over. And it's like a power trip,
Mm.
and it's systemically created. And there was like the strip searches that were going on at festivals and there were like at train stations and things that was a recent thing in New South Wales as well. And that was like ruled should have been illegal. It's just like there's such a concentrate. It's specifically New South Wales. Like, obviously, it's a countrywide issue, but New South Wales in particular has such a corrupt system.
Yeah, I think you might also. I think the fact that you've lived in New South Wales for a long time, and I've lived in South Australia all my life, probably makes a difference. Because what I've noticed when touring the country as punk bands is that the on the eastern states the cops are much more full on than they are where I live. And that's not to
Yeah,
say that South Australia is some kind of post-racial paradise or anything like
paradise
that,
or anything like that, but
but
it's just no,
it's
it really is severe.
but there
It's a
is
really severe issue.
but yeah, there's definitely a difference. I find that in where I live, the cops leave me and my friends alone unless we're being complete morons, and that includes the black people who I've been, hanging out with as well. So, and that's not to say racism doesn't happen and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
there have been
Mm-hmm.
instances of black people being shot as well. I remember one specifically a while back that ex-partner of mine got involved in, and yeah, so, but yeah, there is a slight difference depending on where you are in the country, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Moving on, do either of you think the sexy concept in K-pop should be brought back?
The fact it's disappeared is always a weird thing because, like, man, those songs are bangers. Like, Get a Hair from Girls' Day was a banger. Um, what's it called? Stella, Marionette, Brown Eyed Girls, and their classy, sexy hypocrisy. Uh,
um,
AOA,
yeah.
AOA really killed it, as in like in a good way. Like I love like a cat. That song is a fucking banger. So it's like, yeah, I'd love more girl groups to be doing that, and I'd love for it to actually be done by older women. But Koreans,
Well,
misogyny,
Tiara,
ageism,
Tiara's coming back soon, next month,
yes,
and I've already seen
and
Yeoman's leather pants, so I think it's probably going to be
yeah, I'm into it.
I think it's probably going to be on the sexy side, so they might just bring it back. We'll see.
I'm hoping for it, but I'm also kind of scared a bit about the new girl group that Starship are launching, because
Mm,
like some of those teaser photos kind of look like they're hinting a somewhat, because it's like they're darker there's a black and white photo, and then there's an outfit of the girls wearing quite form-fitting black clothing, but the youngest member's 14, and I'm like, we talk about wanting sexy concepts, we want them done by people who are of legal age, thanks.
mm.
Because yeah, that's gross, that's scary, don't want it. Like, One Young is literally my child, and One Young's 3 years older than this girl. So I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Starship? A lot of things, clearly.
I'm just people asking me questions about videos. I wish I wouldn't do that. Worst date you guys have ever been on?
I barely, barely, barely leave the fucking house. I don't date. I honestly just don't. Trauma from certain men experiences in my life just mean I have no interest in men.
Hmm.
I think like a worst date that I would have to say, if I have to come up with something, was basically like, it started out like, you kind of think you have a crush on them, but you don't really know. And then you get there and it's like, yeah, there's literally no chemistry here. And then like, it was kind of hilarious because we arrived to see the movie, because we were going on a movie date. And I was literally petrified that I would have to, like, when you're a teenager and you got to like make out in the movies because, like, like you're on a date and there's like what guys and girls do when they go on a date to the movies. They like totally hook up in like in the theater. He saw his friends from his soccer team there and he was like, yeah, hey. And I was like, fuck yes, let's go sit with your soccer team. So that way I'm like that way he'd be more distracted by hanging out with his soccer team friends than like try to make a move on me in the theater in front of them. And it was like, yes, I actually just got to sit and enjoy and watch the movie that I wanted to see. And then like afterwards I was kind of like, yeah, I'm not feeling it, sorry bud.
Yeah, gee. Worst date I've ever been on. Gee, I have to think about it. Maybe. I actually tried online dating for a little while, about, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
15 years ago, I don't know. And I met this girl, we met up at a coffee shop or something like that. And um, yeah, and she was just so obviously not my type. And I just sort of had a chat to
Mm-hmm.
her and then um, thought, I'll never see her again. It's probably just as well. And then I started noticing her at some of the shows that I was playing at and stuff like that. I was like, oh fuck, she's in the band scene. She goes and sees shows, and it was really funny because when I actually when when I this happened and I started seeing her at shows. This is when I met my current girlfriend, and so me and my current girlfriend, who I'm still with now, were an item at that time. And when we were just starting to get to know each other. And and so I told my current girlfriend, I said, "Oh, that chick over there, I had like a blind date with her," and it just turned out horribly because she just wasn't my type at all. So my girlfriend was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So, um, so so this other chick went to the toilet, and my girlfriend followed her in, and she deliberately struck up a conversation about me just to see what the girl would say, and
Hmm.
and the girl said, "Oh, I thought he was going to be a more macho sort of person, and he was a real wuss, and I really didn't like him at all, and yeah, and it just seems like such a wimp." And
Like,
we had a good laugh,
thanks.
and yeah, had a good laugh about that. That was good. Um, Australian Sana, why do you tweet so much? And Kpopalypse, why do you tweet so little?
Well, I thought I don't have a Twitter account anymore.
Well,
Who is this?
apparently you do. Apparently you have one devoted to wrestling.
Um, yeah, well, I just never shut up in general. It's like Twitter is more me talking to myself and just venting my garbage thoughts into like the space shaft of like emptiness of life.
Hmm.
Like if you know, like if you're a rocket in the futuristic universe traveling through space and it just like ejects the rubbish cargo into this like the straight up nothingness of space.
Hmm.
That's like my
That's
Twitter
your
account.
account.
My Twitter account is the spaceship,
Yeah.
and the garbage that gets vented out in there is my thoughts from my brain. And Twitter is the universe that just cops my garbage on a regular basis.
The only reason why I have a Twitter account is because I have the website. So the Twitter account's there to just point people to the website and just keep them updated on things related to that. So if I don't have anything to say about K-pop, I just don't tweet
Mm-hmm.
because I just assume people don't give a fuck. And there's enough people out
Mm.
there just sharing their random opinions on this and that. I hate it when I follow someone
I mean,
who's a K-pop person and then my feed just gets spammed with all this stuff that I just don't care about. I'm just like, I don't care about this. I followed you because you like bloody, you know, a group or something, or they
mm.
did a couple of insightful tweets about K-pop. So I'm like, oh, this is an interesting person to follow. And then it's just like 99%, political tweets or something like that, or sport tweets, and it's just like, oh fuck.
Oh yeah, sounds like a real cunt.
I mean, even if I agree with them, I still don't want to read it.
Ah, shut up.
It's not directed at you. Um,
Sure.
which character on the 1990s TV sitcom Friends do you most identify with and why?
Probably Phoebe, because like she's fucking batshit insane and loves cats, even if they're smelly.
Yeah. Well, that sounds pretty cool. I'll pick her as well. I've never even seen Friends. I don't even know who's in it. So,
Honestly, you're really not missing much. It's like a white people culture, but it's really kind of like it's definitely outdated.
hmm. What is that noise?
To watch.
What?
Oh,
What was
I
it?
don't know. Is that
What was that?
I'm recording some. I'm currently recording something on my phone, and I'm not sure if that recording noise got weirdly picked up by my AirPods, which I wouldn't understand why because my AirPods have not properly been connected to my phone. So
Oh, that's weird.
yeah,
Okay. Oh, never mind.
yeah,
Um, since the last podcast, have you had the chance to play K-Pop made computer games yet? If so, what are your thoughts?
I have not.
No, I didn't think so.
I mean, I definitely want to at some stage. I just haven't because insane busy shit going on in life.
Australian Sana, please read us more Maroon 5 lyrics.
Just for Kpopalypse. I don't know. The ones that I know off the top of my head are the ones that I said last time.
All right. Thoughts on Girls Planet 999? Will everyone forget about Mnet's previous rigging scandals? I think this question
I
was
mean, that's
asked
what I find
before this was
before it finished.
broadcast.
But like, I do absolutely find that aspect of it hilarious. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's literally just Produce 101 redone under a different name, and everyone's just like, yeah, we'll let that happen.
Yeah, it's like everyone just fell for it. I can't believe it. Everyone covered it. all the same sites, wrote all the same stuff about it. Everyone just went through exactly the same motions they did when Produce 101 came out. K-pop fans learned nothing.
Of course, but that's what makes them K-pop fans.
And even the same sort of things came out afterward about how there was edited, you know, in deceptive ways and stuff like that. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's Mnet editing.
Yeah. Kpopalypse, please update us on the well-being of your cat. Um, in, she is actually in front of me right now, sleeping, and I'm gonna actually
Oh,
take a photo right now so I can put it somewhere. Um, so you can come on, fucking phone. There we go. I'll post that up later. Um, but yeah, she's been asleep. She loves to come into my room when I'm talking because usually when I'm talking to my computer, it's because I'm live streaming, and whenever I'm live streaming, she gets fed. So she always makes sure she's here. But yeah, she's just having a snooze. Do you think there's any BTS armies in the Australian Liberal Party?
probably. I mean, if the Saudi Arabian government can brainwash armies into supporting their government, I'm sure the Liberal Party is just waiting for the borders to reopen to sponsor a BTS concert.
Could you please name your favourite and least favourite SNSD song, excluding I Got a Boy?
Mm. Well, that answers that one. Damn it.
You got nothing else to say?
I mean, I don't dislike SNSD discography. I enjoy their music.
Mm,
So, like, if I had to pick between favorite songs, there's like, I mean, Genie is an obviously great song. G is a classic for a reason. I quite like Into the New World. That was a great debut song. There's a couple of like really hidden gem B-sides. Like, there's a You a Holic, which is
mm,
a B-side in their Japanese album. That was such a good song. And then there's like other little gems like in the Mr. album, I really liked Soul, which was like one of their video game promo tracks. It was like a track from a video game, which I thought was really cool. So
mm.
I mean I like a lot more of their music than I dislike. I'm trying to think of like any song that I particularly what's it called? My J. That's a song from their uh album, the Boys album. It's just like I like cute shit, but it's just like overly cute shit.
Yep. Um, Best I'd call it Chocolate Love is the one I like the most.
Yeah,
Worst, I can't remember the name of it. I know the song though, but I can't think of it. It's some slow balladish sort of song they did around
yeah. How
2000.
great is your love?
Yeah, maybe that's the name of it. I can't remember. Um, it was done about 2013, 2014 maybe, and they're all sort of. I remember them all sitting around in a room, just sort of staring vapidly into space while they sing this song.
Is it a Japanese one?
Might be. The thing I really remember about it is that I don't even know the melody. Um,
I know the melody.
but
I think
the
if it's the one I'm thinking of, I actually like that song.
the funniest thing about it is in the video, Taeyeon is designing clothes. Like she's doing clothes drawings, and which is exactly the same thing Jessica got kicked out of the group for
Oh,
after that video happened. So
okay. So this now the one I'm thinking of is All My Love Is For
that's it.
You, but
That's
that
it.
had all of the really
Yeah, that's
because
the one.
I thought that Jessica was in that.
Yeah, she is. Um, but
Yeah.
it's Taeyeon who's doing the clothes designing. Um,
Anyway, that's funny, and I actually like that song.
yeah. Um, Sana, who are your favorite? Try not to talk for 20 minutes. I want to go to bed soon. Sana, who are your favorite wrestlers, and have you watched any Joshi wrestling? What's Joshi wrestling?
I think it's Joshi. It's like a type of Japanese wrestling. I probably have at some point, but wouldn't be able to properly identify
Is
it.
that the ones where they
Just
like
because like
throw barbed wire at each other and shit?
let me do a quick Google on Joshi wrestling. So Joshi wrestling is JWP Project or Joshi Pro Wrestling. It's like it's a splinter promotion of Japan Women's Pro Wrestling. So it's more to do with women's wrestling.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I probably have watched a couple of the matches from there at some stage.
Mm.
I know like a couple of female Japanese wrestlers. I think the one who I like at the moment is Maki Ito. I think you would love Maki Ito. I post a bit about her content. She used to be an idol,
Right.
but she got fired from being an idol and then she became a pro wrestler. So she has this super idol style look to her and her wrestling attire,
Mm-hmm.
but then she just like constantly swears and just says fuck all the time. And it's just like hilarious. Like her English is very broken.
Right.
But it's like always broken English, like swag, like, good morning, everyone. Fuck you all. It's like
Yeah,
so
it
great.
sounds like
I'll
my
link
kind
you
of
her
girl.
Twitter account. Absolutely. So yeah, she's amazing and I love her. Um, as again, don't speak for 20 minutes, but I could speak for an hour and hour and
No,
hours on like favorite
I know.
wrestlers. So as a quick version, I really, there's a lot of my favorite wrestlers right now are in AEW. So my favorite probably is MJF. I also really like Adam Cole these days. I've been getting into a lot of his matches. I like Hangman Adam Page. I like Orange Cassidy. I like Chris Jericho back before he became a QAnon conspiracy theorist. So back in his early WWE days, like in the very early 2000s. Not really much of a fan of what he's been doing in AEW lately, just because he's become this like super alt-right guy. Like not a fan. Yeah, huge MJF fan. He's probably my favorite. I really like, as I said before, Adam Cole. I respect Kenny Omega as like a really good wrestler. Um, there's a faction that existed under NXT called Undisputed Era. So all four members of Undisputed Era are Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong. So I like them as a unit. Yeah, there's like, if anybody wants to talk wrestling, there's the wrestling account and I will talk for lots of time on lots of different wrestlers because I like a lot of them. And like Britt Baker, because I got to mention some women, of course. Britt Baker, Mickie James, Melina. There's a few straight off the top of my head.
Follow
Jay
AustralianSana's
White
wrestling
as
account.
one. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, could talk a lot. There's a few people in WWE that I like, but I hate WWE as a company. Not that I'm saying AEW is like a good billionaire, because there's no such thing as a good billionaire, but WWE just treats their employees horribly. So it makes it hard to like anyone in that company. But Bianca Belair is a superstar.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I just googled Maki Ito and there's some good pictures of her being rude.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I like that chick. Um, if you were to become a Pokemon trainer, which would be your starter Pokemon and why? Also, which starter Pokemon would you recommend to Kpopalypse and why?
I'm literally a horrible person to like really do this kind of recommendation stuff, is because it's like I like Pokemon, but like I vaguely remember it as just like the original 150, so I wouldn't even be able to tell you. Like I know there's fire types from like a Charmander and a Charizard, and then there's like earth type Bulbasaur, and then water type with Squirtle. I just like Pikachu because I'm a basic bitch, so everyone gets fucking Pikachu.
There we go. You know about as much as I do. I remember watching the cartoon years ago, but that's about all I know about it.
Like I just remember it from Cheese TV as like fond childhood nostalgia, but I couldn't afford the games because I was a poor child. So
Do you listen to any podcasts? If so, what are they and why do you listen?
I just don't have the time really to invest in podcasts. I mean, our podcast is pretty much it.
Yeah, I don't have
I
time
listen to
either.
music.
Yeah.
I prefer listening to music than listening to other people talk. If I wanted to hear people talk, I'd like have conversations and actually engage in the conversation and be a part of it than just listening to other people kind of talk when I'm not talking or involved.
Um, if you had to take a side, where would you stand in the ownership disputes over Dodco? Uh,
What's
Dod
Dodco?
Dodco, aka Lion Court Rocks, which is an island about halfway between Japan and Korea, which is
Docto,
disputed.
Docto,
Oh,
Docto.
yeah, I can't pronounce it. Sorry.
Yeah, it's yeah. Yeah, obviously that's a contentious issue. Let's see. It's like, I literally don't know the history of it well enough to make a straight up statement on it.
Yeah, me neither,
But, you
honestly.
think of yeah, it's like, I just know that there's been a shitload of colonization that Japan did to Korea from 1910 to when they were liberated in the 40s. And I think that Dokdo was a part of that.
Mm.
So again, like without knowing it, because of that history of Japan's, literal invasion of Korea, I kind of just want to be like, oh, give it back. Not yours.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak on any with any knowledge either, to be honest. But that K-pop group Mont had that song about Dodco, M-O-N-T,
Mm.
and that was funny. So
Oh, I remember like whenever like there's all this business about BTS and like their military service, and like this great comment I saw once was like someone just saying like just record a song about Dokdo being Korean and that's your military service done. Just little casual propaganda there, but it would be good propaganda.
um, what do you think of NCT, including Wavy in general? Do you think SM will keep adding to the mess, or will they face the music and move on to something else? That question sounds
Sorry.
like it was written by someone with a very anti-NCT agenda, but anyway.
Yeah, what can I say? Like, I'm not the biggest fan of them, to be honest.
Hmm.
Like, their music's just not my style.
Yeah.
But, I'm not going to be that old person who kind of comes in and be like, well, kids these days and the music that they listen to is rubbish. Back in my day, we had quality music like Infinite. It's just, they're not my vibe,
Hmm.
but I recognize them as being the vibe of, quite literally millions of people at this stage. And I know I've got a few friends who like it. So, if that's your thing, then that's your thing. And, as Olivia Rodrigo herself would say, good for you. I kind of just like, I'm indifferent. I don't care. I just focus on the stuff that I do like.
Yep. Cool. Fair enough. Um, what are your MBTI types, and how close are the types to your real personality?
So MBTI is the pseudoscience stuff. I think we have talked about this in the past on it, and I think it's pretty much rubbish. But it's the kind of like it's like star sign rubbish to be honest.
Oh,
Um, it's like it's fake in the sense that it's like it changes depending on you. It's like you can't guarantee that you'll get the same result every test that you do. So therefore, it's not like a real reflection. It's more like a reflection of you on that day. And I'm pretty sure that I've seen something online about the person who created it having some sorts of Nazi connotation to it as well, which isn't very cool. Um, from the test that I have done before, mine is an INTJ, and I relate very heavily to it. Like in terms of the description of it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's fucking me in a goddamn nutshell, ain't it? But it's also confirmation bias a bit as well. It's like, oh, I see myself in that, so therefore I am that. Versus, is that really who I am? People are fluid. They're not necessarily one thing one day and something else the next. So I'm a bit indifferent. I think that personalities change depending on who you are around with. I think that it depends on who you're around with, what's going on in your life at the time. So it's like there's people who use MBTI and like job application stuff, and I think that's rubbish because I don't think that should be such a definitive answer
mm,
on who you are as a person and your potential. Like I am an INTJ, but my job literally requires me to work in a bar and serve customers on a daily basis. There's never going to be a job where I don't have to interact with people.
yep.
But I'm capable of doing my job despite being an introvert. So I don't think it should ever be at that level of influence.
I've never done a test, but I recently stumbled across a site where someone had called the personality database, where someone had actually done an analysis of me, and they apparently tell me I'm INTP,
Oh, we're close.
so whatever the fuck, oh, fuck, CUNT as far as I'm concerned. Um,
Yeah.
all right, so we're going to wrap this up. Last question. This is the most important question. So, um, uh, yes, please think about this one carefully. If your pet was the size of a horse, would you mount a saddle on it and ride it to and from work?
If he would let me, Jack and Gus are my two dogs,
Mm.
and they're both kind of idiots. So it's like I don't think I could trust either of them to like actually go where I tell them to go. I mean, I just give them lots of really big hugs because they'd be really big, and I just love to give them hugs.
Yep. Yeah, my cat would be just too volatile.
I mean,
I
yeah,
don't
you
think
can
I'd
have a
get to
cat
work.
as if they'd let you.
uh,
Probably just like eat you. I mean, big cats exist. They're called lions, and they don't like humans much.
yes. Yeah. I think my cat would definitely eat me if she could. She already tries. Um, that's it. That's all I got. Um, yeah, so I trimmed down the questions quite a lot. Um, there were a
Yeah,
few duplicates and there were a lot of stuff that I just like, nah, can be fucked. So it's already 2 hours long. So fuck yeah.
yeah,
If you want it to be answered, just ask it next time. And also pay us. That helps. Believe it or not,
yeah.
money is a
I'm
big
poor.
motivator. Australian Sana doesn't have a lot of it, and she also likes alcohol, which costs money. So you do the math.
Yeah,
Thank you for
exactly.
doing the thing with me again.
Yep.
Sorry it took so long, but we're both very have quite a
We knew
schedule.
it was going to take a while.
Yeah, and yeah, so and even as it is, it's been hard to kind of squeeze it in. Anyway, I will we'll do another one when we can. And if you want to send your questions in, please do it. And if they don't suck, we might even answer them.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
no guarantees.
yes, and yes. So I hope you're well, and I'll talk to you again next time.
Excellent. I'll catch you later.
Yes. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye for now.